So, I mean, first off, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day of, having a little chat with me and talking about the new
Pleasure.
record.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's absolute pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. So do you want to kind of talk a little bit about the coming together of the boys? Because it seems like it's almost clockwork at this point. Whenever a new decade rolls over, there's a new Transatlantic record.
Yeah, we seem to
So,
do, we work in broad strokes, as they say, and
mhm.
calendar-wise, we do seem to, don't we?
Yeah,
Once
yeah.
a decade. If you're lucky, you'll get two albums out of us in a decade.
That's what I was wondering. I was wondering if there's going to be another record in like 2 years or so, because that seems to be the trend is one album at the
Well,
beginning and then a couple years go by and another one drops.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the world is so crazy at the moment
Hmm.
that I guess in a couple of years' time, hopefully, we'll have got round to touring this album.
That's
But
right. Yeah.
I mean, it's all up in the air, isn't it? It really is all up in the air.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think we've really thought about doing another album yet.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
And even like speaking about this new world that we found ourselves in, what was it like recording in complete isolation without actually like being in the same rooms as one another?
well, I mean, we're quite used to doing that because that tends to be. I mean, what we did is essentially what we do with every album.
Hmm.
Um, we got together, we discussed getting together,
Hmm.
and then we all wrote music for it, and we got together and we kind of recorded a demo version of the album.
Hmm.
With this album, we didn't get any of the backing tracks recorded. We had 10 days in Sweden,
Right. Okay.
and we just arranged the album
Hmm.
and had a rough template of how it was going to get from start to finish, which
Right.
ended up being more or less the arrangement of Forevermore, the
Right.
extended version.
Yeah.
And then Mike recorded his drums at the back end of 2019. I got
Okay.
my dates all wrong because we're a whole year
Yeah.
without. So am I right in thinking we recorded in 2019, didn't we? Yeah, we did.
I
We
feel
recorded
like,
in 2019.
yeah.
So we actually Mike went to Nashville and tracked his drums,
Hmm.
and then I was away. So that was in like November in 2019. I was away on tour with Marillion, and I was getting sent all these files, drum tracks,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
and it's like usually with these kind of file transfer sites, you've
Hmm.
got like a week to download them, and I was
Yeah.
living out of hotel rooms and a
Hmm.
bus and stuff like that, and it's like there's no way I can do this. So I managed to figure out a way to download the files,
Yeah.
but I couldn't work on them until 2020. And by
Mm.
the time I did actually get round to doing any bass recording
Hmm.
or anything else on this album, Britain was in kind of lockdown
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
And we'd seen the signs with China,
Hmm.
and I remember thinking, well, a lot of people, particularly Marillion's producer, was thinking, you know, why there must be something really big going on in China for them to
Hmm.
actually lock down the country
Yeah.
and potentially destroy their economy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, everybody else has had to pretty much, I mean, the whole of Europe followed suit
Yeah.
after Italy and then the other countries. And eventually, the great United Kingdom government decided they should lock down too.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
They took a
even,
bit of time to decide that. But anyway,
yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
so but at every album we've ever done, we've always had to take it away and work on it separately in our own
Okay.
studios. And we're
Yeah.
kind of capable, we're pretty capable of doing that.
Yeah. I mean,
I
it
mean,
shows on all the other albums.
yeah, I mean, it, I, I think we all felt actually with the first album, Sympty, that we were quite lucky that it all kind of fell into place
Hmm. Hmm.
because once we left the studio with what we had, which was we had the drums and I think we had the bass on the first album,
Hmm.
and we'd kind of sketched out vocals and things,
Yeah.
and then it was just left up to each individual to fill stuff out.
Right. 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 Right.
And we did, and we probably overfilled it a bit, but it all really worked.
Yeah.
And then we sent all the files were sent to Rich Mauser, who's mixed out all of the albums, including the one about to be released.
Yeah.
And he did a fantastic job. And I think it was the feeling was, that was actually came out really well when you think we didn't really talk about how we were going to achieve that.
Right. Yeah.
But we, as the years have gone by, we've kind of progressed, and we've managed to have a way of working which works with, which suits us great. But with this album, the main difference for me was that I couldn't record anything in a studio. Right. I couldn't go to. Normally, I would go to the Marillion studio and record vocals and get a good bass sound and stuff. This time, I had to kind of do it all at home, and my home computer is really a Mac.
Yeah,
it's it's a Mac and an interface and a bunch of stuff in the box, as they say, as we say.
Yeah.
So I sneaked out to the Marillion studio, picked up my favorite Warwick bass.
Yeah.
And I'm just recorded straight into the computer.
Okay.
And I figured, well, I trust the bass.
Yeah.
So I know the source sound is going to be pretty good. And I made sure I kind of changed the strings often.
Yeah.
Because with the kind of, there's a lot of attack, there's a lot of ferocious playing. So I wanted that brightness. I wanted that sort of extra sustain, and I use wound round strings as well, which is probably pretty obvious when you hear the sound of the bass.
I was going to say the sound definitely
going for
shows
a kind of bright metallic kind of sounds most of the time. And then I sent all my bass files to Royner, who reamped them, because Royner has an Ampeg set up at the studio.
Right.
So he reamped them for me.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
But then also, when they get to when all of the tracks and all of the files hit Rich in LA, who mixed again, Rich Mauser, who mixed this album as well.
Yeah,
he will have done a bunch of stuff to it as well, because he's just a great guy. He's got a great pair of ears, and he's got a load of old outboard gear that he'll use. Oh yeah, like I put it through this box here, and then I did this with it, and I've got this really old compressor that I just use for bass when I want this sound. There's all that going on with him. So which is great. I love all of that.
Oh, that sounds really fun. I didn't realize how much like crosstalk there was, quite literally transatlantically, through all this. Like,
do you know what? I've never really talked to him about it, but I know that's how he works.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I'm very lucky that I've worked with a lot of engineers and a lot of producers that are either bass players or are huge fans of bass.
Right.
So I don't often have to, sit in and say, this is what I want the sound to be like.
Right.
Because I'm not very good at describing bass sounds.
Right. Yeah. It's just like, this is the feeling that I want to get out of this.
I'm much more of if it seems to work in a track, we're probably on the right path.
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes, some of my favorite bass sounds, when you actually solo the bass, it's like, oh, that's what it actually sounds like. It doesn't bass doesn't always sound how you would imagine it to sound like in isolation. It can be a really weird thing. So anyway, we all left Sweden. We all started working on this long version of the album called Forevermore.
Yeah.
And we weren't really at that point. We were all doing it at different times, and we were, we most of the world was in lockdown.
Yeah.
So whereas when we left Sweden, we thought, well, we've got about a month to finish this album.
Yeah. Before
and then
touring.
Because the record company are going to want to release it, and we're going to want to go on tour with it.
Yeah.
And of course, none of that could happen. So that just gave us more time to tinker around.
Oh, that's good.
And there was talk in Sweden of whether we wanted to have a really long piece of music, or whether I thought maybe it might benefit from being a little bit shorter. So while we were working on all of these things, and like Neil had written some other music and rearranged some of the stuff into a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And he came back to us and said, hey, I've got this idea. it's the heading was, "Am I crazy?" And he said, "I've got this idea that, I've been listening to it since I've been away from it for a while, and I think it would benefit from being a bit shorter." And he'd rearranged it and made a few cuts, and left out a couple of things, but that allowed him to kind of bring some of the themes from later on in the album further forward, so we could feature themes more than once, which is something that is kind of we're fond of doing, and it suits this kind of music very well.
That's always my favorite part of this type of music, is hearing a theme in one context and then later on in a different context, and seeing how things
and usually we change keys several times. Like, it's not Transatlantic unless we've played a very complicated piece of music in at least 3 keys.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So live, that's just murder. I take forever learning this music to play live.
Yeah, you submerge your fingers into ice cold water before and after.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're playing this. Oh, but we're playing it in this key. And then there's always one key that is almost impossible on bass. It's like, how am I supposed to be able to even capture what I'm trying to play here?
Yeah, for sure.
With these 4 strings, I have nowhere near enough,
Yeah.
Need like a 7-string bass or something.
Yeah, that's why so many have like a 8-string bass. And isn't that just a guitar?
Well, I'm a Puritan when it comes to that kind of thing. I like to. I figured all my favorite bass lines were written on a 4-string bass, and I like the movement of going up and down a neck rather than just across the neck.
Across, yeah.
I love the tone changes that you get, and you can do the nice kind of slides and McCartney-esque.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more tactile, actually moving up and down.
Yeah, it feels a bit more real and a bit less like it could have been written on a keyboard. To me, to my ear.
Yeah, but, for sure. Yeah.
So we ended up with Neil had re-sung and rewritten some lyrics as well for his version, where and also at the same time as this was Neil was creating his kind of sonic fantasy. Royner had kind of gone off and he'd written some lyrics for 1 or 2 of Neil's songs, and so we had different lyrics and different melodies over some of the same pieces of music. And we really ended up with a choice of 2 quite different things.
Right.
Although they bore a lot of resemblance to each other in the background of them. And we kind of got this pathway of like, well, what are we going to do here?
Yeah.
What are we going to choose? Are we going to have one, or are we going to have the other one? And rather than, and the trouble is it's a 4-piece. So 2 people decide one thing and 2 people decide another. We've got a stalemate going on.
Right.
And so to kind of stop any disagreements and to move the project on, I guess, as well, Mike suggested that we put out both versions. He said, well, why don't we just have 2 albums? 2 versions of the same album, because and we felt they were sufficiently different to warrant that. So
it wasn't just like a deluxe version of one album.
No, it wasn't just like this is an edited version of the album. But for those who want that, because some people, sometimes a long piece of music can be a bit hard to listen to in some respects.
Yeah, it's almost like how a lot of like movies have a director's cut that isn't necessarily better than the original.
Exactly. It's just and it's for but luckily the kind of listeners we have, I think people who like progressive rock, and particularly people who like Transatlantic, really want to dig in. They really want to get everything. They want to do the whole shebang. Yeah. So we took that idea of the 2 albums to the record label. And their first thought was, well, how's that going to work? You can't just edit a long, like you're saying, you can't just edit a long piece of music into something shorter and call it something different.
It the day,
yeah. And we said, no, that's not what we've done at all. And so they ran with it. They realised what we had been up to. And went with it. And so we end up with this amazing package. And of course, we needed a blanket title
Mm-hmm.
So we came up with the title, The Absolute Universe.
Yeah.
Because one of the other decisions we had to make, which eventually was taken out of our hands with the having the two versions, was that we couldn't agree upon a title.
Oh, okay.
Neil really wanted the title to be A Breath of Life, The Breath of Life.
Yeah.
Which incidentally is the last thing sung on the Whirlwind.
It is, yeah.
And Royner and myself kind of favoured Forevermore, because I guess
I see.
Again, Evermore is on the Whirlwind. So we'd already had a discussion about whether we wanted to reference the Whirlwind.
Yeah,
because at one point Neil was kind of quite into the idea of maybe doing a second, a Whirlwind.
Yeah, a second one, because there is quite a few homages to the Whirlwind in this project.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of them. So, but we thought it would be we ended up thinking actually it'd be cooler to just reference it in a few ways. Some more subtle than others, maybe. Yeah, and leave it at that.
Yeah,
because I didn't want there to be like a Whirlwind 2, like Meatloaf, like Bat Out of Hell.
Yeah, the Bat Out of Hell too.
I always think that's like a bad idea.
It's so interesting with a sequel album because you're always going to be comparing it to that original, and in some ways,
and if people really favor the original, that's not gonna happen.
You're never going to be able to measure up unless you're like really doubling down in some way. So you're almost shooting yourself in the foot when you're doing that.
Exactly, which is why we opted not to even go there, really. So and then so you've got the two versions of the album.
Yeah.
But then if you buy the ultimate box set, you have a third version as well.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that. It's quite interesting.
Sorry, there's somebody trying to get hold of me. I'm on my phone here, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
It is, what happened is that there's a 5.1 mix on the Ultimate Edition. There's a Blu-ray, I should say. There's a Blu-ray, which has like a visualizer, which essentially is a movie that runs along with the whole of the 5.1.
That's very
Now,
fun.
the 5.1 is by default, 5.1s are their own mix. But while we were doing that, Mike wanted it to be like his favorite moments from both versions.
So
it ends up being a slightly different version.
Interesting.
Of the album, and it's 100 minutes, which is another 10. So there's another 10 minutes of music in there.
Wow.
Which it's a combination of all of Mike's favorite bits from both.
Yeah, it's very much in the thought of the Transatlantic fans of like more is never enough, where it's just
absolutely
like we have to give them more and more and more, and even then they're still begging for more.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so we've done that, and we've released two kind of trailer singles, Reaching for the Sky, and what's the other one called? The World We Used to Know, of course.
Yeah.
And then in a couple of days' time, we've got another one coming out called Looking for the Light.
Oh, that's a good one.
So that's going to be cool as well.
Oh, fantastic.
And I just watched the video for it, and I think you'll all love
excellent. I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
So we're all kind of really excited about this. And,
can't
wait for it to be released.
Yeah.
Because go ahead. It's your interview, man.
Oh, it's all right. I was going to say, as a huge fan of Transatlantic, like they were one of the bands as I was doing a deep dive of prog music, just immediately connected with me. Whenever I hear that there's something new around the corner, it's so rare that I'm just scrounging for more. So yeah, anytime that there's even like a new music video, I'm like, ooh, what's this? Because I don't think, was there any musical videos outside of Black as the Sky from the last one? Like this is one of the first time there's music videos.
There is Shine.
Yes, Shine,
and
the
then
big one.
there's some live
Mm-hmm.
footage,
And then lots of live footage. Yeah.
lots of live footage,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because
Hmm.
I mean, Transatlantic has the feel now of being a band.
Yeah. Instead of just like big,
I,
not big personalities, but like very bigger personalities in the prog sphere coming together to work on a single project.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it started out as a project, but it kind of became a band,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got its own brand and it's got its own flavor and
Yeah.
visual thing going
Mm-hmm.
on. You know, definitely know when there's a piece of a transatlantic thing around.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that is nice is that because we have the luxury, I suppose, of not doing it all, one straight after the other.
Yeah.
We've had various times where we've had like 7 or 8 years, or maybe 10 years off
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
There's always that excitement when we release something.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's a big build up. It's not okay, it's 2 years, where's the next album? It's much more okay, we've
Yeah,
had
no. Oh, they're back on tour again,
oh,
are
they're
they? Oh,
finally
yeah, because
back.
they've just released an album, haven't they?
That's
You
right.
know,
Yes.
it can kind of get a bit like that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember in Marillion, we used to sometimes, we'd just come off tour, and the record company would say, "Well, you've got to go in the studio soon."
Yeah. Where's the next
So
one?
really, you just give us the rest.
Just give us a
Yeah,
couple days, please.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is cool, and of course, Inside Out are brilliant at
Oh
all
yeah.
of their marketing and their online presence. It's
Mm-hmm.
they've worked out a really good campaign, considering we can't really, can't do too much. We're all stuck at
Mm-hmm.
home.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any kind of a plan for like an at-home concert? Because there's a lot of bands that are doing kind of a like almost like a living room kind of a concert or like different Zoom call concerts.
Do you know what? I don't know. I
Okay.
mean, no is the answer,
That's
because
fair.
no one's, I haven't talked to anybody about it, and I'm a bit reluctant as well, actually,
Right.
because it's hard enough rehearsing for shows that are actually all together.
Right.
I can't imagine trying to rehearse and get it together because there's lots of, and depending on where people are and how good
Hmm.
their broadband is,
Yeah,
there's
that's true.
lots of you know timing issues
Hmm.
of delays and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've noticed with various things that I've
Hmm.
watched.
Yeah.
So yeah, just touring properly would be nice when we
That
can get.
would, yeah, actually getting to see a concert again for the first time in almost
Oh
a
no.
year. That would
Yeah,
be
I know. I think
beautiful.
everybody's just dying to get a bit more of a normal life together.
Yeah, I mean, I've been putting on concert DVDs just to get some kind of a feel back to it, like
Yeah,
spacing out
sure.
like stuffed animals and action figures just to create an audience. It's
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's something to at least recapture a little
Weird,
bit of
but
the
nice,
feeling. It's a little
Yeah.
weird, but anything to do.
I
Um,
don't know.
yeah. But I do want to turn back to the album just for a little bit,
Yeah,
because
of course.
after listening to the album a number of times, getting myself familiarized with it, and
Mm.
as you were saying, really getting into the music, I've noticed, unlike past albums, you actually appear quite often as the lead singer on this. Was
Yeah.
that like an intentional decision, or is this something that you just wanted to do coming in, or was it the boys saying,
Not
"Oh,
from
it's time for
me.
you to kind of
Yeah, no,
take a
I think
shine"?
I just wrote a couple of songs,
Mm-hmm.
and they seemed to kind of work,
Mm-hmm.
and it was decided that it was probably a good idea for me to sing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
because
mean, I'm
it's
not, I'm never really that bothered about, well, I mean, having said that, yeah, I love singing.
yeah.
I've sung all my life, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really a natural lead singer.
I see.
So, up against kind of Neil and Royna, I would probably usually defer to them.
Mm-hmm.
But, they thought it was a good idea I think it's nice on this album. There's a lot more of
Mm-hmm.
Mike as well, I think,
There
on
is,
this album.
yeah, yeah,
So there's a bit more of the sense of the four of us being four singers
yeah.
as well as
It's
four, musicians.
yeah. You're able to capture that four-part harmony a little
Yeah,
bit easier when everybody's sharing the microphone, as opposed to one or two
sure.
people being the forefront, and then you and Mike kind of filling out the sound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's much more of the four of us having our own kind of
Hmm.
spots and parts, which is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a really fun album to work on, actually.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's a fantastic one to really like let yourself be lost in. And that's one of the things that I love about Transatlantic is just putting it on and losing yourself into it. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I
it's like the
felt
sense
that
of going to a really good movie, isn't it? You get
it
that.
is.
I know what it's like because, I mean, obviously we're all huge fans of music and progressive
Hmm.
music, and
Hmm.
when you just get lost in an album, and then at the end of it, and I used to, when I was a kid, particularly, I used to love listening to albums with no lights on.
Hmm. Same.
I used to like in the dark with my headphones on,
Yeah.
just immersed, and I'd get the. I mean, when I started buying records, they were LPs and
Hmm.
EPs and singles.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'd be there in the dark, maybe one little light on the gatefold sleeve,
Yeah.
reading all the sleeve notes. I knew everything about every album I had
Yeah.
in those days. These days, I can barely remember the names of song titles because
Yeah. There's
I get everything streamed these days. So it's like
that's it. You lose kind of the tactile aspect
you do, yeah,
of the
you do.
music. Yeah.
But you don't have to if you because these albums are on vinyl
They
or
are,
they're
yeah.
in the deluxe set as well. So there's
Hmm.
lots of ways to purchase.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things is you have the choice. If you want to listen to it on a streaming service, you can. If you want to
Yeah,
listen to it on
for
CD,
sure.
you can. If you want to listen to, because I'm a vinyl guy myself, I love listening to records.
Yeah,
Um, and it's great to actually have that option this time around because, of course, I'm going to get it in vinyl if I can.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
sure. I mean, vinyl's great. Having grown up with it, um, I remember the flaws
Hmm.
as outweighing the. I mean, they used to have a sound of their own. Vinyl just has a sound of its own,
Yeah,
particularly now that people aren't just transferring albums back onto vinyl; they're actually remixing
yeah, and
albums that they're making now
that's
for
right.
vinyl.
Yeah.
So you're getting a proper vinyl cut, which is how records used to be, and
Hmm.
they do have their own sound. But of course, you have to get up and turn them over, you know,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
interesting.
just
A
it's
friend of
just so
mine,
much.
yeah,
Sorry.
it's a lot of work, but a friend of mine actually mentioned that there was a quote that said the flaws of a medium when they become outdated will be the reason why you return to them. So
Yes.
part of the things that
Very
I,
good point.
yeah,
Very
and
good point.
so getting up and turning a record over, although it's, it takes effort, I actually do love the actual physical getting
Well, it
up,
allows you to go
flipping it
to
open.
the bathroom, I guess,
Right.
and
It's almost like
make it.
having commercials in a TV show. It's like, okay, it's
Yeah.
time to get up and grab yourself a
Yeah.
cup of tea or something and
Yeah.
drop
Of
the needle on
course,
the second one.
in 10 years' time, they'll all be scratched. But
That's
anyway,
yeah, yeah. But then you have your own unique pressing. Like I have a copy of Trick of the Tail from Genesis where there's a specific skip in Ripples. So when I listen to Ripples and it doesn't have that skip, it feels very unnatural to me.
yes,
Yeah.
I know. I know. I remember that now. Yeah, because I used to, obviously, like you do, I'm sure, play records to death.
Oh yeah, yeah. The
which is
needle
which
carves
is
a
one of the
hole.
reasons why I
Yeah.
loved CDs when they
Hmm.
came out, because it's like, this is great, this is but now I prefer streaming just because it's simpler.
It is.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and I know it's terrible, and I know I'm a musician and I should hate it,
But
but
as a consumer of music, it's so much simpler to find an album than having to go up and look on the shelf. Because I don't know about you, but I have like a mountain of CDs. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah,
where's
sure, me
that
too. I
one?
can't
Where did
even
I put
find
it?
half of them, so
Yeah.
I will if I want to listen to something. Although if I listen to, I still get that sense that if I stream something that I haven't got at home, it's like, well, I feel like I'm kind of cheating, really. I'm cheating the artist here.
Right.
And so if I like something a lot, and I've tried to instill this in my kids as well, if I like something a lot, I'm going to purchase it,
Yeah. And that's essentially
because
what
it
I
seems unfair not to, really.
it is, yeah, and that's what I find is a stream for me is just testing the album out to see if I like it, and if I like it enough, then
Exactly.
I
A
will
bit like
go out
listening
and
to
buy it.
something on the radio. It's
That's
like, oh,
it.
yeah, that's great. I
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
but
and
I'm going to go and buy it.
it's a great analogy because streaming services now have like a browse feature and like a playlist feature, so you're able to
Mm.
sample just a couple tracks here and there. I'm not a fan of that because I like listening to an album in how it is presented, because each track fits in the album in a certain way, but it does allow you to kind of test drive an album before,
It does.
going
Yeah.
fully into it. Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's something I think that people forget, or it's easy to forget, is that bands and producers spend hours. They spend hours deciding. I mean, we wrote and arranged our album to go from the start to the finish. But when you write tracks and have them put together on an album, you spend a lot of time deciding where they should go.
Yeah.
And how much space as well. The other thing is how much space should be between songs. That is decided. That's not just, oh, that's how the guy put it together when he mastered it.
Yeah.
These things are decided.
Yeah.
And you'll time them and you'll say, no, 2 seconds feels too long. And then well, let's try a second then. No, that's way too short. And
right.
Spend half a day just going, do you know what? It just needs an extra 2
milliseconds just right there.
It just needs a little bit more distance from the last track.
Yeah.
And then of course you have to listen to all of it and decide if it works with this. So you almost listen to the silence as much as you listen to the music.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing when you think about it. But yeah,
it is,
all of that stuff goes on and is valid.
Yeah. And even like, I haven't done it yet, but like I wrote a script about a video that I wanted to do about the silence in tracks itself. And one of the tracks that I wanted to use as an example was The Invisible Man from Marillion, because there's a number of points in that where the music stops, but the song continues. And that enhances the music before and after it, because it allows you to take that little bit of a breath.
Yeah.
Where I feel like a lot of bands want to jam pack a music so full of music that you're never going to be able to sit down. So
sometimes I think when, because with that song particularly, we go through musical movements, almost like an orchestral piece.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need a breath so that you can allow what's gone to be digested.
Yeah.
And almost like cleaning the palate and then moving on.
That's right. And then you take a breath and then
now we're on to this part. Part of the same story, but we're moving to a slightly separate area.
Right. Yeah.
Like episode 3 of a series on
That's
Netflix.
It. That's right. Exactly. Same series, different episode.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, Pete, and chatting with me about this new album, as well as just geeking out about music and how we listen to it.
Yeah.
Well,
I used to, when I was a kid, I had a tape recorder. Before I had a record player, I had this reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Oh, yes.
And I used to have to get either my sister or my dad to record albums. I'd borrow albums off people. And I'd record them onto reel-to-reel.
Wow. Yeah, I did the same thing, but with cassette tapes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then I moved on to cassette tapes as well.
Yeah.
And even down to like taping songs off the radio.
That's it. Yeah.
So you get the terrible radio sound underneath it. But the fact is it was the way. Yeah.
Having to call into my local radio station and requesting a song, waiting for it to come on so that I could record it, because there was no other way to get it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And they did that for you. Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. So, because they had like an all request lunch hour or something. So I would hold the microphone as close to the...
What was the song? Do you remember?
Oh, one was Bohemian Rhapsody.
Good
because
choice.
I had to. And then the other one was Carpet Crawlers from Genesis, because I'm a huge Genesis fan. So
that is great. And The Lamb as well. The Lamb's got some great music
so
on it, man.
Good. Yeah. And I knew that they would play, like, they wouldn't do big songs from Genesis, like the longer stretches, but they would do the shorter ones. So if I asked for...
Because, I'd like side 2 of...
Foxtrot or something?
No.
It's like, no, we'll do we'll do Lamb Lies Down, the title track, and Carpet Crawlers for you, but we won't do like In the Cage or The Calling of the Slipper Man. And I'm like, nuts. Well, maybe next time.
I know, they were good as well. Some of that.
Beautiful.
Some of that stuff.
Oh, well, I wish we could talk for the entire afternoon, but...
well, no, we can't. I have to go and eat. I've got Christmas cake waiting for me with a cup of tea. Actually,
yum. Yeah. Well, thank you once again for coming on board. And I hope everybody everybody checks out the new Transatlantic record at the beginning of I should memorize the release date at this point.
It's the 5th
February.
of September, 5th of February.
That's it. The beginning
Yeah,
of February. So a couple weeks
beginning of
away.
February, February 5th,
Yeah, and
2021.
people
Yeah,
can still pre-order it or order it if it's
they
after
can,
February.
they
Yeah.
can pre-order it, and you know, if your budget doesn't stretch to the deluxe edition, which is a fair amount,
it's a fair amount. Yeah.
There's a standalone version of the Blu-ray, which features the visualizer, the 5.1 mix, and a documentary that we did, which has some of the footage of us playing in Sweden.
Oh, beautiful!
And geeking out.
Oh, fantastic!
You can buy those. You can buy that only from 3 sources.
Okay.
Inside Out.
Yeah.
Shop. In Europe.
Yeah.
In the UK, you can buy it from Racket Records, which is Marillion's online shop. So Marillion.com, you'll see shop. It's in there.
Yeah.
Or Radiant Records, which is Neil's shop.
Neil's shop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and Neil has some extra stuff as well, which is the Absolute Universe related. So yeah, check it out. If you thought, oh, you know, I really sounds like I should really get into getting my hands on some of that, then there's still stuff available.
Excellent. All right.
But things like the vinyl and the Ultimate Edition are going to run. They're running out because they had to be printed way in advance.
So there's a limited quality. So once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Excellent. Because there's just, you know, there's not enough vinyl factories in the world.
Interesting.
The vinyl, it takes months to get vinyl.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you again. And hopefully I'll be chatting with you in the future for other projects that you'll be involved on.
I'm sure. I'd love to.
Excellent. All right. Well, take care and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.